Hello and welcome to a brand new Arseblog Arsecast right here on arseblog.com. How are you? Hope you're well. Thank you very much indeed, as always, for being here. It's an interlull, so there's not a great deal going on. However, there are bits and pieces that we can get our teeth into. There's a new deal for David Raya. There's all the stadium expansion talk. And, of course, the big news of the interlull so far is that Arsenal are launching their own range of diamond jewellery created using carbon extracted from the pitch at our iconic stadium. A collection created from the very turf where legends have played. No, I'm not taking the piss here. I know it sounds like something I would make up, but it's absolutely true. It was on the Arsenal website this week. So if you fancy your own Arsenal diamond, that's it's good news for you. Unfortunately, all the diamonds come with Fly Emirates and Visit Rwanda stamped across them, so there's give and take with this shit. Just to be clear, that bit was a joke. Anyway, there are things to talk about, genuinely. More interesting things, I promise you. And it's my pleasure to welcome back to the show for the first time this season. A bit of a catch-up is overdue with our old friend, Clive Palmer. Good morning, Clive.
Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you sort of facing into this interlull? What's your coping mechanism, if you like? Are you just sort of letting the games pass you by, or do you keep a close eye on things? Obviously, we've had some injury issues so far this season. Is it just a case of like watching and from behind the sofa almost, hoping nobody else picks up a knock?
Yeah, it's about to kick off now, isn't it? And of course, Arsenal are the best team in the world. Everyone says we've got the best squad. All the data says we're going to win the league. We're at the top of all the underlying numbers. And every pundit saying, oh, we're great. So, well, the doom side of me is just waiting for something, isn't it? Right. So I'm trying not to connect to it too closely, and I'm off in. I go different places. Andrew, got non-league this weekend. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be I'm doing lots of NFL watching. Funny enough, I'm watching NFL stuff back in the old Dallas Cowboys days, and I'm trying to disconnect away from football because the stresses are just around the corner. We are wise men. We know how this goes, right? So yeah, I'm preparing myself for that.
Do you find it more stressful than it used to be? I have to say, I remember thinking and I think I said this to James on the Arsecast Extra, and it might be just, I don't know if it's an age thing. I don't know if it's the fact that we've finished second 3 times in a row, that we're also desperate for success, and we're also aware that this is a team that has the potential to achieve success, that with that comes a kind of stress along with the sort of all-day, everyday football coverage that we are part of, right? We have to hold our hands up and say that we're part of that. But I think I find it a bit more stressful than I used to. I'm not saying there's comfort in being crap. That's not what I mean. But everything coming together. Before the Newcastle game, I remember sitting there, I was about to do the live blog, and I remember thinking, why am I doing this to myself? In a way, And I absolutely accept that I am very, very lucky and privileged to be able to do what it is that I do, and I don't take it for granted. But there's a small part of your brain that goes like, if I didn't follow football, maybe I'd just be at peace in a meadow somewhere reading a book, or maybe I'd just find something else to be completely stressed about. But I don't know. What's your experience with it? The sort of quality of this Arsenal team versus the lack of tangible success, you would say, and our desperation for that to come to fruition.
Every single week I go to the Emirates, I ask myself that same question. Why do I do this, let alone pay for the privilege? It really does hit. But you just wouldn't, if you could be there, you're just there, right? I think there is an underlying edginess around. It's in me anyway, because despite the last few years, and let's go for the last 3 years, the first year it was all hope and we didn't expect it and it was great. The second year, we took a while to find our team, but once we did, I thought we were the best team, but just not quite good enough. And the third year was just not very good, was it? It was injury. It wasn't great. We got second, but let's not pretend we were competing because we weren't really. But this year, Andrew, from the very first home game, and the sun came out, and Eze came out that tunnel, and I looked around the pitch, and I've gone, oh dear, we're quite good.
Oh dear, we're quite good.
We're quite good. Oh no. Now what? Now I'm going to be even more invested in this now,
Sure.
Before, when you got 4 academy kids on the bench in the Champions League quarter-final, you can always find a way to say, well, we weren't quite ready, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
This year, it feels different. Everything feels different. When I'm looking at the pitch, I'm looking down, I'm looking at the focus. I'm looking at the manager, I'm saying, mate, can you just calm down a bit? It's September. Chill. But they're so on it, Andrew. They're so on it. And I'm finding less things to be concerned about, which concerns me. So, it's like, what's going on? We're good. We're doing everything right, and we look varied. We got tactical diversity. We're doing different things in attack. Our defenders are massive and they're sharp. And I'm looking around and I'm going, oh dear, we can rest Declan Rice in the game when no one even blinks. It is actually harder to cope with in some ways. And that edginess is around. I can't deny it is around. If it's in me, it's going to be in other people.
Sure.
But it's a good edginess. And I think that may turn if we have a big game win, and it'll soon turn into an explosion of joy, etc. But we all know what the goal is, don't we?
Sure.
We know what the goal is.
I mean, I think that, that period, let's say, between the draw with Manchester City, the final whistle after the game against Manchester City, and the start of this interlull is a perfect example of what it is that you're saying about that edginess, because we could all... Listen, you go behind early against Man City, you're at home, you basically dominate the game, you make City play in a way that they do not normally play, and there's a sort of nervousness that comes with that because you're desperately seeking a goal. Eventually it arrives in the 90-odd whatever minute it was that Gabriel Martinelli scored what turned out to be goal of the month on Match of the Day. So a brilliant goal, but the sort of post-mortem of Manchester City versus what came next, the win over Newcastle, the win over Olympiacos, the win over West Ham, and all of a sudden you're going into the international break and you're top of the table. And it is quite interesting to consider how this season it's going to be a roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster, isn't it? And it's sort of like, do you ever see those videos they pop up on Instagram? It's either somebody on a roller coaster or a fairground attraction, and they have the camera on them, and there's one person on one side going, "Wee, I love this," and the other one's going, "Jesus, fuck, get me off! I don't want to be on this." I think that probably encapsulates where we are as a fan base. Without trying to speak too generally, so much has gone into this season, and so much has gone into this team, this squad that we're looking at right now. When you look at what happened during the summer and what we did and how we invested and the players we brought in and how rounded this squad is, it is, all of that is the cocktail of what this season is and is going to how it's going to play out, right?
Yeah, I think also, Andrew, we're so much more informed now, right? So when we first met, we just rock up to a game, have a chat, have a few drinks, and go home. Now, with my phone, I can tell you how many touches a player's had during the game, right? And what he's doing in his average position. We've got so much more information. When the game finishes, a whole new game starts, where you get told about your game, what you did right,
Sure.
what you did wrong. The first people that get that chance get the narrative, and then for the next week, we then have to respond to that, right? So there's an information overload. It's very hard to maintain your own connection to a game of football that allows you to see it in a clean way. But that, you can't help, it seeps into you. Some days I handle it better than others. I get swept up as well on occasions, particularly around media narratives. I'm trying my best to hold a clean connection to what we're watching. But I don't deny, when you said did it feel different? It does feel different. Even though we've both seen us win the league and win cups, etc. If you win something now, we have not got the experience of what's going to happen. We don't have it, right? So I think it'd be times 50 compared to what we've seen in the past. And so, that all leads to the little bit of underlying tension there. And I don't think that tension will go away until we're if we were lucky enough to be 10 points clear. And even then, I could think of a scenario that we could trip over the line. So it's just the nature of the beast, really, and how you manage to control that.
Yeah. You know what occurred to me is, as you were saying that, was that the closest analog I can get to that or to this is, the period under Arsene Wenger where we didn't win anything and everyone was so desperate, and we came close to that, Carabao Cup, League Cup thing, and that fucking, scratching at old wounds there. Yeah. But the sort of the celebration plus relief of the 2014 FA Cup final is, I think, what we will experience, but like you say, times 50, and I wonder if, Mikel Arteta was part of that team, part of that squad. He experienced a lot of that angst as a player because he arrived in 2011. Arsenal didn't win anything until 2014. And it had already been, 2005 since we'd last won the FA Cup. So that experience of external pressure, and I'm sure internal pressure, is not something that's going to be new to Mikel Arteta. And I do wonder if, within his experiences as a player at Arsenal, which I think have gone some way to inform the way that he is as a manager in certain aspects, and I've talked about that before. But I do wonder if this pressure that we are existing in, and this hyper intense narrative that exists around Arsenal Football Club and this particular iteration of Arsenal Football Club, might be something that he can use, It's not out of his wheelhouse. And I think while we, outside are sort of helpless to an extent, we have to sort of put ourselves in the hands of the manager and the players every time they go out on the pitch. What they can do is within their control. What he can do as a manager, as a coach, as a tactician, as a club, what we do in the transfer market, how we build out the squad, those are things that they can control. And I do wonder if, those 3 years coming second might resonate a bit with Arteta and hopefully play out over the course of this season, that it isn't something that will demoralize them, certainly not yet, but maybe motivate them.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you think about it a bit more strategically, we've had the 3 years, which we all know about. We took a couple of years to get there, right? To get to this point. But now we're here, and we've taken a step in the summer, really. We've almost reset. We've brought in 8 players, right? So, and they all seem to be really quite good and usable, right? So there's been a turnover in the squad. There's been a contract renewal side of things. There's been a manager's had a contract recently, We got a new sporting director that popped in March. And so there's been a form of a reset here.
And a new board, a new executive as well.
Well said. You've got a new executive, new CEO. And so there's a reset happening. What they're saying is, people think 3 seconds, maybe they've peaked. We're saying, no. This is just the start of something. We are restating who we are, and we are restating our ambition. We are investing in this current squad and the people we want to invest in. Even the people that have done well by us are getting pay rises, So, and without contract, so we're saying, you are our people. You've given us stability. We're going to keep this environment stable. We're projecting with you guys for the next 3 years minimum that we can get where we want to get to. And so I think it's really smart strategically from an executive point of view. So despite the noise out there, we're saying, no, this is how we behave. This is what we do internally. This is how we create stability. And so people can say, if Arteta's not done it by Christmas, he could go. That was a chat at the start of the season with the start that we had. Thinking he could be in trouble. I always felt it was a bit of a setup, that fixture list. But here we are, second international break, and we're top. So now it's, well, there's no excuses now. Look at this squad. Look at this squad that you have.
You can't win. You can't win until you win.
Exactly. And until you win, you have to just take it. You have to take it. But how they create that protected state for the internal side of the things is by your actions and by signing the people that we've signed, re-signing the people that have re-signed. And there's a couple more to come. If they're all signing, which we all project they will do, there's a noise outside, there's a noise inside, and the noise inside sounds a lot prettier sometimes than the noise outside. And
sure.
We're part of that, Andrew, but we have to wear it as well, don't we?
That's true. And I think we do our best not to make too much noise, or if, we make slightly soothing sea sounds for the people who are listening to us. You mentioned, giving a pay rise to players without extending their deals. And for the second time this summer, that looks to be what Arsenal have done. Firstly, Leandro Trossard, a player who was linked with a move away in the summer, but he was given a pay rise and not a contract extension. And it's an unusual thing. You don't normally see that at football clubs. And David Raya is the next one who has been, I think it was Sami Mokbel in the BBC, rewarded for his performances and his consistency with a pay rise, but not a contract extension. And I know people have different opinions on this, but to me, this makes a lot of sense. That part of managing a team and managing a squad isn't simply about who you pick or how you train or, what subs you make. It's ensuring that within that group, there is a level of harmony, or you actively avoid disharmony. And I think in the cases of these two players, right, Raya and Trossard came from what you would call financially mid-table clubs, right? Brighton and Brentford have been very, very good and have sort of been there or thereabouts in the European conversations a couple of seasons in a row. So it's not a footballing point of view. But when they arrive at Arsenal, chances are they got a decent pay rise, but it still left them some way short of Arsenal's top earners. Yeah. Raya is the number one goalkeeper. Trossard has done very well for Arsenal. No player since his arrival has more goals or assists than Leandro Trossard. And I think you have to be cognizant of that. You also have to be cognizant of the fact that in re-signing Ethan Nwaneri and Myles Lewis-Skelly, Arsenal have raised the floor of the salary level, right? Well, so you have these sort of 18-year-olds, brilliant young players, loads of potential. And in order in this day and age to keep those players, you probably have to push the boat out a little bit when it comes to salaries and finances and bonuses and things like that. So to keep your senior players happy, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it, to say, okay, we're going to put you a bit closer to the top earners, and we're going to make sure that your seniority is acknowledged and respected, so that you're not sitting there going, well, why is an 18-year-old earning the same as or more than I am?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Andrew. Well said. And I'll give you a little history lesson here, like a Tim Stillman would. Okay. I think basically, do you remember Big Gabby when he had that issue at the start of the season? And he was the first one to sign the contract, the second contract per se.
Yeah.
But the numbers didn't look right after a period of time based on what he was doing on the pitch and his level of seniority. And he got tapped on the shoulder, didn't he? By maybe Saudi Arabia, who knows what. Those are the rumours. And he was unsettled at the start of that season. And we dropped points at the start of that season. Remember when he wasn't playing and we were playing these strange systems?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like proactive management, isn't it? You've nailed it. You got to look after your people who are producing. And so rather than leave someone there and say you're saving a few quid because he signed a contract early, you got to treat them right if they're producing. And that's what we've done. And Big Gabby's got his money now, and same for Trossard, because his numbers are irrefutable since he's joined, and he is on less than Reece Nelson, so that needs to change, so and they've done it. And so that means that you don't have a flight risk, and you almost proactively stop any sort of discourse in the dressing room. So I think it's a really smart thing to do. Obviously, clubs work on exit plans, etc. And if you're not extending Trossard, what's potentially coming up next summer, but that's next summer. And that guy's career is protected in the short term. So I think it's a really, really good thing to do. And again, it prioritizes stability in the dressing room. And I think that's the most important thing, particularly this season when we're going to get tested mentally wise, definitely.
Well, sure as well. And I think another aspect of this is that as pleased as we all are with our big squad and as happy as we are with the 8 signings that we have made this summer, there is a big challenge on the manager's hands to keep everybody happy when it comes to playing time, when it comes to minutes, when it comes to their involvement, when it comes to how they feel about their status in the squad. I have to say, I've had some concerns about Gabriel Martinelli. I think some of the criticism of him went way over the top. But, it's fair, I think, to have had some concerns that maybe he's a player who potentially hasn't reached the heights that we thought he might. I don't think it's unfair to talk about him in that regard or discuss him in that regard. But I loved what he did last week or the week before where he came out and, having come off the bench to score in Bilbao, came off the bench to score in against Man City, hasn't maybe started one game since, I'm not sure, but, hasn't really been starting, even with those contributions. But his attitude was, we need the best players here. We all want a big squad. It's the same in Brazil when he's got all these players to contend with. I like that attitude, but not every player is going to be as open or sanguine to that level of competition. So I think over the course of the season, this is going to be a challenge. It is going to be something Arteta has to deal with. So the last thing you want is a player being unhappy because of a contract, because of finances, because of money. If you are prepared to give this guy this, then you have to be ready to acknowledge the contributions of other players. So maintaining harmony is not easy in a big group, in a big squad. There's so many personalities. Yeah. They're all thinking they should play. Every single player in that squad thinks, I should be on that pitch. I can recognize that this guy's great. I know, I've played football, and you know, it's you think that you can do the job as well as, if not better than that guy. So it hurts when you're left out of the team, and it is going to be something that Arteta has to handle this season, isn't it?
It is, and players are the best at seeing the future when it comes to selection, right? So they look at the rhythms, they look at how the manager works, they look at what colour beep you get in training on certain days. Do you get the handshake? Do you get the hug? They can see all the signs and the signals, right? If you're prioritised or not. But right now, in what I call the points accumulation phase of the season, we're going to Europe and we're going to the League Cup. We're playing every 3-4 days. They're all thinking, it's okay. I'm going to be playing. There's so many games. I'm going to be playing. International break. I'm going to be playing. But they all think they're going to be playing in a Champions League quarterfinal against Real Madrid to come next year. They all think that. Mm-hmm. And when that time comes, that's when it hits home who really is a priority, right? And that's when we will be selecting our strongest team for the real big games. Mm-hmm. And come next summer now, that's going to be the interesting thing. So, okay, where do I fit in this squad? Where do I fit in the hierarchy? I've done my bit. I've got my 35 appearances, but have they been in the right games? Have they been in the right game? And will I be in those games next year based on how the games have gone, how players have played, and where do I fit in the order of things? Mm-hmm. And that's going to underpin the next phase, Andrew, which is our selling strategy. Because when you have the level of quality players that we have, then suddenly, if they don't quite make it, they're being sold on a higher bar because we are good. Really good. And that means we can start to regenerate and bring in money to widen the sort of transfer part. So I think what we've done this year, the form of reset, to build that, it's a great squad, but it'll also build the first phase of our selling strategy. It's going to be a place to watch, right? But in the meantime, we benefit because we get a situation where in the last week or so where we had a couple of fullbacks, Myles and Ben White, start against Olympiacos. They play pretty well. Come the Saturday, come the weekend, Calafiori and Timber play against West Ham, and we're the best two players on the pitch in the first half. Yeah. How has that happened? Because they've been rotated and rested, and there's a level of competition there. And so we are benefiting from this, because that game we lost last year against West Ham, this year we jogged it and won 2-0. And so that comes from the squad depth and quality. So it's going to be hard, but it's first world problems, mate. I am okay with it right now. Tell me that.
Oh, absolutely. Me too. I think it's what we've needed, I think. It's what we've needed to sort of push ourselves forward again. And I think you're right that maybe next summer there'll be a couple of casualties along the way. That's just the way it goes. There'll be some good players maybe we don't want to see go, players who maybe potentially don't necessarily want to go, but are in a position where that becomes a reality for them and for the football club, Yeah. Do you look at, just touching on what you said there, do you look at games like West Ham and Newcastle as markers of progress this season, you know, because, you know, you get these things all the time, you know, on after 7 games, Arsenal were this last season, after 15 games, Arsenal were this. But, you know, based on the equivalent fixtures, you know, we're up 6 points on what we got from Newcastle and West Ham last season. You know, I don't think it was a case really that, you know, with West Ham, that first year we lost to them 2-0 around Christmas time or just before New Year. We played them off the park and couldn't score. It was kind of a crazy 3-week period where we just found it really tough to find the back of the net before we got motoring in the second half of the season. Last season, the performance against West Ham was crap. It was crap last season against Newcastle away, and not great the season before against Newcastle away, whereas I could, you know, regardless of result, and I don't want to say the result wasn't important because it was huge, particularly the way that we won it, but you could see the performance was markedly different. So in terms of performance and in terms of results, are you looking at those two as like, okay, these are how I sort of gauge where we are this season compared to last?
Yeah, the West Ham game, I carried scars into that game, Andrew, and I was nervous, but no one else was around me. And everybody I spoke to said, well, that was easy. It was a non-event. And I'm thinking, oh, well, that's a measure for me. But the real measure was Newcastle, wasn't it? Because we know how tough it is up there. They wait for us. They roll out their best team always. The midfield three is never injured when they play against us, is it? They're nicely rested and they come firing out. And I thought that to me was the moment of the season so far. I thought the performance was excellent, how we approached it tactically, how we approached it with a level of assurance. Everything we did was great, you know. And then to win it the way it was sort of stays in our memory because of the last minute wins and even winning by a set piece, wonderful. I feel so pleased for the fans who were there. And so, yeah, that was the one for me because we went there and I always feel Eddie Howe does so well against Arteta. I think he knows where we're going to go attacking-wise. He kicks our wingers to death. But we did different things. We played narrow. We used our fullbacks wide. We then worked them hard. We stretched them. We moved them around. We created chances down the centre. And we won the game tactically, physically. We won it in all different aspects. And we needed to win it. And we messaged afterwards, didn't we? We said, that is huge.
Yeah.
It was huge. You need those things. As a group of players, you need those memories. You need to be there. There are players on that pitch like Gyökeres who hadn't been through a close win like that with this team. I felt he had a very good game that day and he participated. So that was the one for me that made me think, whoa, this is it, mate. This is it. They are really focused. Funny enough, another one was Forest at home. We were so focused that day in everything we did. And even when we were 2-3 up, I can see this team working so hard. And I thought, wow, lads, relax. You know, relax. I was literally saying relax, you know. That was what I was seeing. And so I just think there's a different focus there now. And it's you know, I always say, I say a lot of things, Andrew, you know. I always say you get things when you deserve it. And even though we've come second the last few years, maybe the second year, I thought we were very close to deserving to win it. You know,
sure,
City nicked it, but we were really close. If we got it, I don't think anyone could say we didn't deserve it.
Yeah, that's right.
It was very, very close. You know, the first year we were just kids, and the third year we weren't ready. But now I'm looking at it thinking, crikey, you know what? We could deserve this, but based on how we've acted and what we've done and everything we've done. I'm looking at a team, I'm looking at how we're playing. It feels so different, particularly attacking-wise. It feels so different, it feels so varied. With the things we were speaking about last year, we haven't got a left side. We're not really saying that much anymore, are we? You know, we always go to Saka all the time. Well, he's been injured half the season and we're still picking up points. You know, the things we would talk about even just a few short months ago, they've just been diluted by what we're seeing. And we've just got to continue it now and stay in the room and don't bottle it, son. No,
well, that's it. I mean, I do think there is Arsenal is still, some of our best players are still really young, right? Saka, William Saliba, Martinelli, still only 24, I think, but there is a real spine of experience as well, isn't there? When you look at the ages of these players, I was looking at Ben White turning 28 this week. I was like, whoa, Ben White's 28. That's not to write him off or anything like that, but Zubamendi's 26, Havertz is 26, Rice is 26, Odegaard 26, Eze 27, Gyökeres is 27, Gabriel 27. Key players in this team. Raya, 30 years of age, nothing for a goalkeeper, as we know. And there are players like Marino and Trossard, at the upper end of things as well. So it feels to me like the blend is pretty much perfect this time around. Then you've got these sort of guys snapping at the heels from below, Myles and Ethan and Max Dowman to a lesser extent because he is still so young.
Yeah.
It feels like the blend is right, not just in terms of the ages, but in terms of the experiences that they have had as a player and as a group. And William Saliba, and I know I've said this before, but I thought there was something so encouraging about him, who could go anywhere he wanted, anywhere in the world. Any football club in the world would have him tomorrow. And he said, I am not leaving until I win things. And he's not saying, right, I'll win things and then I'll fuck off. That's not what he was saying. Yeah. But he's saying he's not leaving until he has won things at Arsenal. So, all of that, pain and frustration and heartache at the second places, coupled with all that other stuff, really does make a difference.
It does, and they're all doing it together, isn't it? There was a bit of chat saying that Gabriel and Saliba had a discussion about what they wanted to do in their careers, and both said they wanted to win here together, and they're both signed. So talking and your actions are two different things, and so there's also a brotherhood in there. We know that just from watching them play, and they want to win. Because the players that we sort of fate from yesteryear, they've won big things for us. I think there's some exceptional players in this group, but you can't quite commit 1,000% to that statement until they win something big. And when they do, they will get their flowers. So basically, what Saliba was always a little worried, wasn't he? He was always a little worried in the back of our minds. I wonder if he'd really committed, blah, blah, blah. Well, he's shown that he's as committed as anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really indicated to me that something good is happening there. And now with this, there's a time when we used to just not have these players stay. We just see them go and we just have to rebuild again. You just need to do the final thing. I think it's very important, from an executive point of view, they're saying, let's just compete at the highest level, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not sensing that anymore. I'm sensing a real commitment to win, to really win. And it's going to be tested. Because Liverpool, Man City do not rate us mentally wise. They see us as a smaller club, and we haven't won in 20 odd years, right? So I think we just need to hold ourselves together, not get too big in our boots too early, because it's only a few games, and only 1 point ahead. That could change in a weekend. But also not be blind to what we're actually seeing, what is actually happening here. We talk about football all the time, and we have less and less things to moan about that's going drastically wrong, and they are future-proofing us. And the age of the group is just another signal for that. And yet, look at the contracts now. So I know if you, I don't want to go too far ahead, because if we were to win something big this year, then we would immediately be favourites the year after, just because of the age of the group with that final step. So what we're planning here just needs to have that first win, and then it can really stabilise and grow into something else. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think it's almost a psychological barrier at this stage, not just the last 3 years, but the fact that you've got to go back to 2004 for Arsenal's last title. Those things start to become an institutional weight, if you like, regardless of era, regardless of manager, regardless of players, it becomes a weight on the club itself that we've got to lift. So, I'm really hopeful that we can do that. I wanted to ask you about two players I just mentioned a moment ago, Myles, Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri. Both signed new deals, which is great. Both of them have been, I'm not going to say peripheral, but maybe haven't played quite as much as they might have expected or might have liked. How do you view the way Arteta has been using them this season? I mean, he talked about left back in Calafiori and Lewis-Skelly, and he said, listen, sometimes it's not that you've done anything wrong. It's that the guy who's come in has just been so good that, you've got to stick with him. So it's not a question of you being poor, but this other guy is just like in the moment, and you have to recognize that. And I think we all accept that, form, et cetera, et cetera. With Ethan, it's a little bit different. He did come on against Forest. He did come on against Leeds. We were wondering, would he be the guy to come on for Odegaard when he got injured on Saturday against West Ham? He went for Zubimendi. You can't argue that was the wrong decision based on the way Zubimendi played. Is this maybe a little, not a reminder, but they have to, at 18 years of age, maybe work harder a little bit to sort of convince a manager or to get themselves into his first team thinking. Do you think there's something that Arteta is sort of deliberately doing to sort of hold them back to see how they react to this based on the size of the squad that we have? Or is it just too early to say at this point in the season? I'm curious as to what you feel about how, you manage two 18-year-olds of this talent where you don't want to make it too easy for them, but you don't want to dishearten them. And they do have to recognise that they're in the biggest, highest quality Arsenal squad that any of us have probably ever seen.
Yeah, I think they do. And I think they have to recognise there's development for both of them. Ethan's development may be, if he wants to be a player that plays in midfield, his development may be off the ball. He's got to be better off the ball. He's got to work off the ball. He's got to press off the ball. Got to work to receive it better. On the ball, I don't think we can quibble with his talent. It's quite clear to see he has it. So he's got an off the ball development to do. And things like Myles is doing, if that's going to be his position, which I'm not sure he's going to be. If you're going to be in wide areas, you've got to learn how to cross the ball. You've got to learn how to switch the point of the attack. You've got to learn to use that right foot on occasions. It's all about adding layers to your game. And you look at, say, Calafiori, an experienced international player. He can do all sorts of things, left foot, right foot, and he's got the physicality as well, and he can stand in midfield, he can stand out wide, he can just do everything. And so if you want to take him, you've got to do everything. If I'm Myles, I'll be practicing corners, mate. I would, just to make sure you're adding another thing to your toolbox per se. If I'm Ethan, I want to make sure that I don't just play in the Odegaard position. I want the manager to realise I can play in other positions. And I've got to make sure I give him more opportunities to pick me, and I've got to show him when I get the opportunity. Maybe I need to practice my dead ball free kicks to make sure if I get the opportunity, that's something that I can be relied upon. You've got to bring the lot to get into this team. You've got to bring the lot. And it's really interesting to see what happens. I think dressing room harmony, I know we touched on it earlier, but football-wise, do people accept that they may have to wait? We will see. But if they're 18, they're both 18, 19, one's in the England squad, maybe playing for England as we're recording tonight. I think it's going to be so interesting to see how they cope with this, mentally. I hope they see it as a great opportunity to develop, because in the squad right now, we got a lot of players that have improved. And I think the manager is a really good developmental coach. He really wants to bring you on tactically, and he can change your game. He can round your game. It's a great environment. And they are ahead of schedule, so they can't lose. Just stay around, work, train, do your opportunities. And if it doesn't work out for you, then obviously things will happen. But I think it's good what's good they're going for at the moment.
Yeah. I remember talking to somebody around the time of, the open training, the members training day. I don't know if you were there, but I was talking to somebody. Yeah. So he pointed out to me that Myles was working with Gabriel Heinze on crossing the ball with his left foot from the sort of left corner of the box area.
Yeah.
And then I saw the cross that he put in against West Ham on Saturday.
Yeah.
Delivered it perfectly. Martinelli should score there, and I think he'd be the first guy to tell you that he should score. Yeah. So I think that's an example of what you're talking about there is identifying aspects of your game as a young player that do need work. That give Ethan Nwaneri the ball outside the box on his left foot. He knows what to do. There's not much that you can improve there. It's not to say he's perfect, but, we know what he can do from those situations. So like Lewis-Skelly, when it came to those sort of crosses into the box from that angle, something that he has clearly been worked on, it almost came to fruition in a Premier League game.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, Myles is such an interesting person. The difference between Myles and Ethan, really, Andrew, a lot is his personality. You know, Myles has got a big personality. He can cope with the situations mentally. In the European game, he was excellent, you know, and okay, he got a lot of fouls, but he was so you couldn't miss him on the pitch, you know, and he reconnected to the team very, very quickly. I thought on the day, Ben White maybe struggled with that, to reconnect to his teammates in the same way. Both rusty per se, but one maybe a bit rusty than the other. Now, Ethan now has a quieter personality, right? And so, but if you look at our number 10 and our skipper, he's not a quiet footballer. When he's on the pitch, you can't miss him, you know, and he dominates all phases of the game. You know, he drops deep, goes into the middle, then goes high, and he's always available. And you need that big on-ball personality. And I think Ethan's development is more emotional, and Myles' development is just time. You know, it's just time on the pitch. It's not anything else. And they're both really top talents. But I think they are in the right place to develop. And I don't think it's a problem right now because they're so young. But in a year and 18 months' time, this conversation could be different if nothing's changed, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
You mentioned that you don't necessarily think that'll be Myles's position. I know the arrival of Piero Nkapie is not permanent yet. It's a loan deal, but the word is that that's one that Arsenal, much like the David Raya deal, will do a loan, then make it permanent the following summer. So if you've got Calafiori, Nkapie and Myles, I love depth as much as the next guy, but that's too much depth for one position, you know, to keep everybody happy. So do you see maybe a slight transition from Myles in terms of where he plays and where we might end up seeing him in the longer term?
I think left back has allowed him the opportunity for us to even see him because, let's be honest, he may not have got anywhere near the team in midfield, you know, and given the plans, given who we bought this summer, etc. But left back has given him a great opportunity. So he's got him into the England team. Well, he's got a couple of England caps. He's scored a goal. So it's worked for him. And he's working on that because that's what you do. You know, you work on something because you have a chance to stay at the very, very top level. But funny enough, I just saw a comp the other day of him playing for the England youth teams in midfield. And it's very hard to watch those comps and not think there's another position for him out there.
Yeah.
That he hasn't got to think about first time left-footed crosses in wide areas. I mean, there are things that just come natural to you, you know, and he is a natural midfielder that's talented enough to play left back for his country, which is a really great thing to have. But over time, your body changes as you grow and you develop, get older, and maybe you don't want to be in those wide areas sprinting up and down versus the Rodrigos of this world. Maybe that will change, you know. This time we went to Madrid last year, or this year, sorry, earlier. I wanted him to play against those wingers. He was the perfect fullback for them, you know. And we were worried about Calafiori, he wasn't fit, but we were worried about his speed, etc. But now the situation changed because Calafiori's fit, he gets tighter quicker, doesn't get beat defensively, and he causes problems offensively. Sometimes the team can tactically come back to you, you know. And so, yeah, I think it's just going to be interesting. But I do think eventually he will go back into midfield. But when? I'm not worried.
Yeah.
I'm not worried.
Okay, yeah. We can cross that bridge when we come to it. One of the other big stories this week, talking points, is about the stadium and a potential stadium expansion, which has been in the ether for quite a while, right? Yeah. And I don't think there's anything particularly conclusive or concrete about the story that came out this week, which was in the Telegraph, I think. You know, Arsenal potentially using Wembley as a home if renovations or improvements need to take place to the stadium. How do you view I don't want to say the need, because there's demand, right? Right now there is huge demand for Arsenal tickets, both, you know, I guess what you would call the regular fan, and for the club's point of view, maybe a need to, or an option, an ability, maybe is the best way of putting it, to sort of add more corporate, more hospitality, raise more revenue that way, strike while the iron is hot, etc., etc. It's almost 20 years old. It'll be 20 years old next year, the stadium.
Yeah.
Is this inevitable in the sort of football world that we live in right now, where, you know, Real Madrid redeveloped the Bernabeu, Barcelona are redeveloping the Camp Nou if they can, you know, find some money down the back of the sofa to finish it off. Liverpool have upgraded their stadium. There's a new stadium not too far down the road in close to North London that you know, is an impressive thing to look at, even if what lies inside is, you know, not to any of our tastes. You know, how do you think about the need to do that, and what the cost might be as well? Because if you've got to move for 2 seasons to Wembley, you're sacrificing a lot for, you know, listen, clubs have to think medium and long term. Absolutely they do. There's no question about that. But, you know, and I don't think there's anything imminent, by the way, because, you know, you've got to go through so many processes to get anything done when it comes to planning and planning permission and all the paperwork and that kind of stuff. So I don't think this is something that's going to happen tomorrow or next season or anything close like that. But it is something that they have to consider from a sporting perspective as well. It's not just about the financial aspects of redeveloping a stadium. It's what you have to cope with on the pitch when it's not your pitch, if that makes sense.
Yeah. When I saw the story, it wasn't a surprise. Me and you have been to SoFi Stadium, haven't we? And once you go there and you recognise that the owner of that team owns your own football team, he doesn't take a mathematician to work out that we need to do work at the Emirates, you know, and because this stadium at SoFi is just something incredible, right? So that you can obviously see this was on the meeting agendas in the executive rooms for a long, long time. Now, do we have to do it? I think we do. It's a matter of when and how, right? So there's one, for me, it's not the capacity. You know, the capacity goes up 7,000, but it's more corporate, and that's not the thing that they're really going for. The real thing is multi-purpose, multifunctional, right? So if you can have a pitch underneath that moves out, an Astro pitch comes in, and we can do American football there and other events there and things like that, that's where the revenue is. Spurs have around 13 non-football events a season, and they make around 6 million every time there's an NFL game there, right? So 2 million rental, and they get all the food and they get all the drinks, etc. Those numbers can be refuted, but I read them. So and so that tells you the potential. Oh, our owner owns an NFL team. You know, the NFL contract. Why can't that be Arsenal? You know, these are things you project when you're an executive down the road. I think that's where the win is. Madrid have doubled their match day revenues by changing that stadium. So that's a lot, Andrew. That's a lot. And given the financial sort of restrictions in the game, given the fact that TV will eventually, at some point, flatten out, the way to make your money and to increase your revenues is by what you're doing with your ground, your real estate. So it all makes sense. Now, the sporting cost. Well, the last time this happened, it was last time we won the league. We had one of the best teams in our history. And now we talk about the best squad we've ever had in our history. And this has come up again. And that team had to break up, may have broken up anyway, but did it break up quicker because we couldn't keep our players and we didn't win trophies for a long time? What I don't want to see is now we're just getting excited about a new group of players. Look at their ages, look at their profiles, look at this coverage. We potentially can win something in the next 3 years, something really, really big that will stay with us for a long time. But now this has come up. And I know it's not going to happen at the same time, but I can't help but have those sort of little scars come up again.
Sure.
But I also understand this is the nature of the beast. Liverpool are expanded, as you know, everyone's doing it. Chelsea got plans as well. Man City have got a new fan park. It's 300, 400 million that can bring in revenues all around the ground. They're expanding their stadium. You have to look at your people around you and say, okay, we need to stay with or ahead. And this is the way to do it. The way we are positioned in London, closer to the city, there are things that we can do. We have to be doing this, whether we like it or not. We have to be doing it because we're in a dog-eat-dog world, right? So yeah, I totally get it. And I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow, but I totally get it and understand it from almost all angles. The sporting one worries me because we take away an advantage.
Sure.
You can't deny that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the talk is for maybe 10,000 extra seats. You know, that was the headline I think I saw in The Guardian, raised the capacity to 70,000. There's a really interesting piece over on Arseblog News that Andrew Allen put together, because the Emirates Stadium was built and designed by the same company that built the new Stadium of Light for Benfica in Lisbon. And they're currently doing things to that stadium to sort of increase the capacity, adding extra seats here and there. They're redeveloping the entire area around the stadium in a way that, as Andrew points out in the piece, we can't really do around ours, and there isn't really the need to do it there, but they're making basically what looks like a kind of futuristic Olympic Village kind of place all around the stadium. So it doesn't become just a match day stadium. It becomes a sort of arena or a venue or a series of venues around that stadium, which generate that kind of revenue. So there are things that Arsenal can do. So if people want to go and have a look at that, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. You can click on it and have a read and just see what way, certain things can be done within the infrastructure that we already have. I mean, do you think, we had a question on our Discord from John Hossein, who said moving to Wembley wasn't good for us last time, and we didn't move to Wembley per se, but we played Champions League games at Wembley, Clive, as you'll well remember. We met before one of those many years ago. Barcelona came and beat us 4-2. Which wasn't great, but it was necessary at that time for various reasons. I think it was mostly to do with UEFA's advertising hoarding regulations, something like that. But we moved to Wembley and it was hit and miss. There were some okay nights and there were some bad nights, and then there were nights where you thought, oh, why couldn't we play this game at Highbury, where we had real home advantage. I'm not sure there is the mechanism for Arsenal to, because of, let's say, the way Liverpool did it, it was a stand that was redeveloped, whereas because of the sort of bowl shape of the Emirates, I'm not sure that there's a way that we could stay. So it would require going somewhere else for at least a season. Is there sort of, in your mind, a limit to the time that we should be away from our home stadium? Is it something that needs to be done within a season?
It all depends on the plans, isn't it? It all depends, because no one's saying this is not going to be complex. I think they're going to have to be doing things around stand height, potentially going down to create space, going down potentially. I just thinking about it, it does feel complex. Just looking at it, right? So I'm not sure how it's going to be done. But that complexity means time to me. And we can all hope for a season, but you can see it going over quite easily. The miracle's happening to Barcelona right now. And it just haven't got there yet. And things can change very, very quickly.
I mean, Barcelona won the league last season not playing at Camp Nou. I think they were playing in the Estadio Olímpico in Barcelona. Which was the old home of Espanyol. Espanyol have moved out to a suburb of Barcelona in a new stadium of their own. So there's nothing to say that just because you're not at home, you completely lose out. But there is something in players always talk, don't they, about sort of understanding where they are on the pitch, sort of intuitively in a way, because they just recognize the space that they're in. And that might sound really stupid or simplistic, but I think it is certainly something that we had to get used to when we moved from Highbury to the new stadium. Yeah, that was so different that players were like, well, where the fuck, Yeah,
I think also people enjoyed coming to the Emirates as well. Initially, and I think when Spurs played at Wembley, they struggled at the start. People enjoyed coming there and they really put on their best show. But Spurs got some good results playing at Wembley in the end, and they beat Liverpool a couple of times. And I think it's just, Wembley's a challenge anyway, Andrew, for people to get to and get in and out of. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, isn't it?
It's not the best, particularly for the sort of seasons we're playing now, 60-game seasons. I mean, crikey, going to Wembley 30 times would be wonderful, wouldn't it? So, yeah, it's not the best. But I think from a football side of things, it comes back to your where we started. Your squad. If you're a good team, you're a good team, right? I think those soft factors mean less than they did, But when you're not such a good team, you need every single advantage that you have, everything, and so I think it could be a problem. But I also recognise football, we need to be at the forefront, and maybe when we did the Emirates move and everything changed TV wise and match day revenue was not such a big percentage of what you were doing, I think this time we need to think about the future and about making football an even bigger event than what it is right now. It is an event, going to a home game. It's just a massive occasion, and that can grow. And I think people are looking at this, City, what they're doing around their ground, it's an event. It's a place to visit. Manchester United's plans, they're on pencil at the moment. But again, it's an event to go to that ground. It becomes a place to visit, and I think the future of football is going to be interesting. It's going to be so interesting to see what direction we go. But I do think we need to show ambition. Don't be afraid of that word, ambition, to position ourselves appropriately. And I think when I read that this week, my gut feeling was, this is interesting. But the actions and how becomes a bit more challenging.
Is there a status thing? Is that something you need to sort of... Listen, some people have talked about, Arsenal in all kinds of ways, but, the idea that we would become or would have the biggest stadium in London, is that sort of like a big dog move kind of thing? Does that shit matter? Is it really important whether or not it's about what you do on the pitch? For me, the most interesting thing about this, the potential expansion, improvement, because I think technologically things have moved on, and to go back to SoFi and talk about what you've got at your disposal, within the stadium itself, and that's sort of your match view, if you like, from where you're sitting in the stand, the way you can view the pitch, the way you can view the screens, the amenities. I know American sport is very, very different to Premier League and to football, but in terms of what you have available to you within the concourses, those kinds of things. But, if you're going to add X amount of seats, and you're going to add a certain percentage of those are going to be corporate, and probably super corporate, if that's the way of putting it, where if you're going to really heighten that experience for the people who have the money, then you're going to do the whole box thing in a different way, and they're going to cost a fortune, and they're not for me or for you or probably for anybody listening to this, but there are people out there who can spend that money. But what's interesting to me is that these expansions and these improvements are only useful to you if your team is good.
Yeah.
And it has to be good, right? Because it's not that long ago where we didn't have European football. It's not that long ago that we did have some European football, but you could get a ticket anytime you wanted, and you could probably sit anywhere you wanted inside the stadium because, it was 50% full because the team wasn't good. So does that suggest to you that at the very highest ownership level, there is an understanding that this commitment to improving the infrastructure or the stadium or what's around or the Wi-Fi inside it or the screens or the sound system or the corporate facility, that this is only useful to you if your team remains at the very top level, in terms of competitiveness?
Yeah, and so what have we done recently by making sure these players are around and we have a level of footballing stability, right? So when you're going out to get your money and investment and to bring people to you to say, look, help us pay for this, you need to be a good side. Mm-hmm. So we got that box ticked, right? Yeah. So and so they're going to be around. I think it's important, Andrew. I don't want to just see another 2,000-3,000 seats rolled around and we dig down a few feet and then add a couple of rows. It doesn't make sense. I think the point about status is important. Chelsea have won a few more big trophies than us in the last 2 decades. And if they build a new ground, we're going to sit there and watch them take over everything. That's not going to happen, right? So you need to get there ahead of time. And maybe some of this week was to make sure that we got the Wembley thing in first. You never know, right? So and so the executives live in the future, and they will know what's happening in other areas and what the pressures are, the timelines are, etc. I do think, though, it's just not pie in the sky to me. There's a lot of sense behind thinking about this, and I think it does. Just look at the people around the world, what they're doing. there are so many teams in the Premier League that are looking at their grounds. In Crystal Palace looking at theirs, Bournemouth looking at theirs. They all recognise where the extra money is, right? So we have to do it. But I do think we have to be a good side, right? And we have to maintain. And what happened before, although they always said that the transfer money was ring fence. Remember those days, Andy? Ring fence away? That word ring fence. If I see that again, well, I'm not sure it was ring fence because everyone was trotting off to Man City and wherever to go and Barcelona to go and get their... Well, we got to make sure it's ring fence this time to do something, but definitely. Otherwise, it won't work.
All right. Well, wise words to finish us off. We better leave it there. Clive, as ever, a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed to Clive. You know where to find him in all the usual social media places. And of course, he is part of the Arsenal Vision podcast crew with their fancy new logo and all that. So look, I think we've done as much as we can today on this particular episode. There will, of course, be eyes on the internationals over the coming days. Hopefully our players involved in those play well. Or if they can't play well, don't play at all. Or if they do play and don't play well, they don't get injured. I think that's pretty much what we're looking for. But I'm not going to complicate it by doing something as foolhardy as thinking about it any further. So how about that? Let's leave it there. We will have an Arsecast extra for you. I'm not entirely sure when. James, of course, has got a filming schedule. It could be Sunday. It could be Monday evening. I don't quite know yet, but we will have an Arsecast extra for you in the not too distant future. For now, though, wherever you are, wherever you're listening, whoever you're with, I hope you're all right. Thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. Enjoy your Interlull Arsenal stress-free weekend as much as you possibly can, and you can join myself and James whenever we have that podcast for you. Until then, though, take it easy, folks, and we will catch you on the next one. Cheers. Bye-bye. Are you looking for something for that special someone in your life? Your constant companion, your best friend, the one who never leaves your side and always has your back. Arsenal Football Club are proud to announce the launch of Dog Diamonds. Wow them at the dog park with Arsenal Dog Diamond studded collars, Arsenal Dog Diamond encrusted bandanas, or an Arsenal Dog Diamond diamond-handled pooper scooper. View the exclusive collection now at arsenaldogdiamond.co.uk/dog/diamond. Please note, Arsenal Dog Diamonds are not real, and for the attention of the David Bowie estate, these are dog diamonds, not diamond dogs.